What's up guys, E-Man here. Today we're going to be printing the Nemesis from Resident Evil 3's remake. This is something that I've been looking forward to printing for a while now, as Nemesis is by far my favorite creature from the Resident Evil games. And after how good Mr. X turned out, this was going to be my obvious next choice. I'll be going through my process once again, and we'll see the results in full at the end of this video. So let's get started. I started with the model ripped straight from the game itself, which was very easy with the proper modding and extraction tools. It was also fully posable, and I did him in two variants. One with his Flammenwerfer, and one with his classic rocket launcher. I had a hard time picking which one to go with, but I ultimately went with the flamethrower variant, as he was my favorite boss in the game. Note that the total number of triangles is at 1.8 million after decimation, which is significantly lower than Mr. X's 2.6 million, though the quality is not in any way degraded by this, as you can see in the renders here. Similar to last time, I sliced the model into pieces to use on the separate printers I have. The main torso and the fuel tank would be done on the Prusa i3 in FDM, and his limbs, head, and flamethrower would be done on the Anycubic Photon using resin. Opening Simplify 3D, we can see the print time is actually much longer than the last one, with a whopping 64 hours of print time. Though, again, this is at 0.1 millimeters in layer height, so that kind of build time is to be expected. While that was going on, I placed supports on the pieces intended for resin, and loaded them onto the Anycubic Photon. I did this as 3 separate resin prints, the longest of which being the flamethrower itself, which took approximately 9 hours. After about 3 days on the Prusa, the FDM components were finally complete. I removed the larger support structures using pliers, as usual, and then used tweezers to remove the smaller pieces supporting the harder to reach areas. The post-processing for the resin components is trickier, but still manageable. You can see the 3 prints here. The first one contains the head and the heart chamber, the second one contains both boots and his right hand, and the third contains the flamethrower, which also has his left hand holding it. All 3 of these components are placed inside the ultrasonic cleaner, which is preheated to 45 degrees Celsius. Once the excess resin has been removed, the supports are taken off with pliers and tweezers, or by hand. Looking closely, we can see the level of quality is still absolutely excellent on all the resin components. The flamethrower in particular came out very clean, which I did not expect. Every bolt, screw, and rivet is maintained, which I'm really happy with. All the components are placed within the UV light curing chamber for approximately 30 minutes. Once that's done, they are rigid and ready to be assembled. I also printed his display base with the name Nemesis embossed on the front and painted the logo white. I wanted it to look official, just like last time. The next step is model assembly. All the components are sanded at their connection points and glued together using either super glue or hot glue where necessary. For the hose that connects the fuel tank to the flamethrower, I actually used a very long bendy straw that I had on hand. The straw routes through the coupler on his upper arm and into the hose bib on the flamethrower, which completes the weapon. With the model assembled, we are now ready for priming. The first coat is a flat gray primer applied evenly across its surface. Before using any sort of aerosol paints, always remember to wear a respirator or do it outdoors in a well-ventilated area. Safety first. The next coat is a Vallejo black surface primer, meant for painting. This stuff also requires a respirator to work with, so keep that in mind when using it. Similar to Mr. X, Nemesis also has a limiter covering his body. The primer's semi-gloss black finish will simulate its look quite nicely. The final step is painting, done with the airbrush and by hand. The airbrush was used to distinguish the exposed skin from the limiter jacket on the model, and then those spots were properly painted in with various mixes of flesh shades and a dark maroon color for the exposed muscular tissue. A flesh wash was used in these areas to make sure they had the proper shading to resemble skin, and a gloss varnish was used over that to make sure these same spots had a distinct pop to them. The teeth were painted in ivory vanilla mix, gunmetal was used for the staples across his body, and the singular eye was painted white. The fuel tank is mostly black with a few dark red highlights, and the flamethrower is painted carbon black with several of the pipes painted to resemble copper tubing. The warning label for the secondary heart was also printed out in several different sizes. This was the finishing touch to complete the project. And with that, the Nemesis is done! This is probably one of the best figurines I have ever put together. Please let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on this project, and be sure to check out the Thingiverse page if you want to take a crack at printing Nemesis yourself. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.